Good morning, children. Today let us study about the remaining two abiotic factors which are important in an ecosystem. So first is your light. We all know light is very important for photosynthesis, and the amount of photosynthesis depends upon the quality, intensity and the duration of light. Photosynthetic yields will be maximum in the equator region and the tropical areas due to more amount of light is there. Now, adaptation for photosynthesis under top canopy. You will see there in areas like dense forest, like rainforest, most of the forest area is covered with trees. So the plants, herbs and shrubs which are present below these trees can perform photosynthesis under very low light conditions. So this is their adaptation. Now next importance is required for phototropic responses like flowering. Do you remember photoperiods? What is photoperiod? Photoperiods means the plants flower due to the duration of light. There were long day plants, there were short day plants, and there were day neutral plants. According to the duration of light duration, not only plants flowers, birds also migrate. Birds of colder areas of northern hemisphere begin their southward migration as the day lengths begin to shorten. And again the reverse journey is undertaken with the increase in day length. If you will see the plants in which the leaf fall, this is also due to the duration of light. Then flowering of certain plants, they flower at a particular season due to the photoperiods. And if you'll see, certain animals hibernate because they are cold-blooded, or they estivate or summer sleep or hibernate due to winter sleep, and this is all due to the duration of light. Not only this, children, animal breeding. Some animals breed according to the response in the length of the days, like goat, sheep, deer breed in response to shortening of days. Turkeys response to the lengthening of days. So the duration of light is responsible for photosynthesis. There are plants which adapt, which can photosynthesize in low light condition also. They are responsible for the photoperiods, flowering of plants, and not only this, the vegetative growth of plants, the migration of animals, the hibernation, animal breeding also depends upon the duration of light. Now next abiotic factor is soil. Children, we know what is soil. The upper weathered part of the earth's surface which sustains life is known as soil. And how is the soil formed? By the weathering of rocks. And the quality of soil or the composition of soil depends upon the rocks by which they are formed. Now if you remember, the soil contains the topsoil. In the topsoil, what is present? Mineral matter, humus, This is lightweight, this is spongy, dark in color, and it is most fertile soil which helps in the growth of plants. Then there was subsoil. This subsoil is about 1 meter thick, and some materials leach here from the topsoil, and it does not have air, it does not have any biological activity, and it does not contain nutrients, not also humus also. And the third was your bed of rocks. No biological activity is there, and it represents your water table. Now, soil composition. How many types of soil was there? Sandy soil, loamy soil, clayey soil, and due to their composition, different types of plants can grow in there. It depends upon, like sandy particles, sand soil will have coarse grains, the amount of air will be more, and the water mostly will percolate, so it is not very good beneficial for growing of plants because it cannot retain water, and 80% is about sand in this sandy soil. Now clay soil, it contains, the soil particles are so small that they all get sticky, and they can hold a lot of water, but they are poor in air. And third was loamy soil. Loamy soil is the best soil because it is a mixture of sandy soil and clay soil, so it can hold water also and it can hold air also. So this is the best type of soil for growing of crops. Now what is humus, children? Have you heard about humus? Humus is the dark brown in color, which is mostly formed in the top soil because of the decomposition of organic matter, and it contains most of the minerals and nutrients, and it is very good for growing of crops. Now in soil also helps in sustaining certain organisms like bacteria and fungi. They are decomposers, they are present there. Certain algae are present there, protozoa may be present, nematodes, insects, earthworms, mollusks, many burrowing vertebrates, all are present inside the soil. Now pH of soil also. pH of soil determines the crops which grow in that, and plants grow mostly best in neutral soil. Slightly acidic soil favors forest formation, while slight alkaline soil promotes formation of grasslands. So acidic soil is good for forest and alkaline soil is good for grasslands. So these are the abiotic factors. Let us study what are the responses of organisms to these abiotic factors. Children, have you heard the word homeostasis? What is homeostasis? The process by which the organisms maintains a constant internal environment in respect to changing external environment. Nowadays, if you will see, the external environment, it's seldom uniform. It will always change. Sometimes the temperature is very low, sometimes the temperature is very high, sometimes there is excess of water, sometimes there is drought. So those organisms which can maintain the internal environment constant, whether the conditions outside may be different, these are called to maintain homeostasis, and these are the organisms which are mostly warm-blooded animals which can maintain a constant temperature and osmotic concentration inside their body. Now how these, according to this, Like some of the organisms can maintain homeostasis, but some of them cannot maintain homeostasis. So there are different types of organisms according to maintaining of homeostasis. First are, how do organisms cope with the changing environment? Regulate, conform, migrate and suspend. Now what is regulate? Regulate means physiological and behavioral means ensure constant body temperature and constant osmotic concentration. See children, some organisms are able to maintain a constant body temperature and constant osmotic concentration despite changes in external environment, and these are known as regulators, like only birds, mammals, and a few lower invertebrates are capable of thermoregulation and osmoregulation. What is thermoregulation? Thermoregulation means maybe the temperature outside is 0 degrees Celsius or maybe it is 50 degrees Celsius. Our body temperature will remain same, 37 degrees Celsius. And osmotic concentration, organisms which live in the water bodies, they will remain the constant ionic concentration and water concentration will remain in their body or inside our bodies also. So all organisms which can maintain proper thermoregulation and osmotic concentration, these are known as regulators, and most of them are warm-blooded animals. Now how do we do it? Like when it is very warm, what do? We sweat, and by sweat what happens? Cooling occurs, and that brings the temperature down. And in winters what do? We start shivering, that produces heat, and which helps in increasing our body temperature. So we all can live very comfortably whether we are in a very cold area like Antarctica or we are present in a very warm area like a desert area. So all organisms which can maintain a constant body temperature and a constant osmotic concentration of the body, they are known as regulators. They can regulate. Now next is conform. See, majority 99% of animals and plants cannot maintain a constant internal environment. The body temperature varies according to ambient temperature, according to the surrounding temperature. And what are these known as? They are known as ectotherms. Ectotherms are cold-blooded animals. In aquatic animals, the osmotic concentration of body fluids changes according to the osmotic concentration of the surrounding water. So these animals and plants in which the osmotic concentration and temperature of body changes according to the surroundings, they are known as conformers. So those who can maintain, they are known as regulators. Those who cannot maintain and it changes according to their surroundings, they are known as conformers. Now why were conformers not evolved to become regulators? Because when evolution occurred, all the adaptations had occurred and species has tried to change according to their surroundings. But why? See, thermoregulation is energetically expensive for many animals. We know, children, to maintain heat we need a lot of energy, and that's why we have double circulation to provide constant supply of energy. And those who have double circulation like birds and mammals can maintain their body temperature. So small animals like shrews and hummingbirds cannot afford so much energy for thermoregulation. Heat loss or heat gain is a function of surface area. It is directly related to the surface area, and so these animals like shrews, hummingbirds have large surface area as compared to their volume. So in colder environment they tend to lose heat very fast. They will have to spend more energy in maintaining their body temperature as compared to large sized animals. It is because of this reason small sized animals do not occur in polar regions. This question comes, why these small animals do not occur in polar regions? Why, children? Because small animals have larger surface area relative to their volume. They tend to lose heat very fast when it is cold outside. They have to expend much energy to generate body heat through metabolism. That's why they are not found in cold areas. And now next, if you'll see, if the unfavorable external conditions remain only for a short time, the organisms have two alternatives. First is your migration and second is your suspend. Now what is migration? It is, you may have always heard, the organisms when they are present in unfavorable conditions, they will always migrate to areas which are favorable, and when the unfavorable conditions are finished, they will again return to their original places. So we can see in Bharatpur Sanctuary, that is National Park in Rajasthan, they receive thousands of migratory birds which come from Siberia and other very cold regions. So migration is also an example to avoid stressful conditions. And now next is your suspend. What is suspend? See, suspend means for some time you suspend your activities, and like some examples are, in the sports thick walls are formed to avoid the unfavorable conditions, and they can germinate when the conditions become favorable. Like you'll see in fungi, you may have seen in amoeba a thick cyst is formed. Now second, in higher plants, seeds and other vegetative reproductive structures are means to avoid the unfavorable condition, and this is called their dormancy period. And when the conditions become favorable, they get proper temperature, proper warmth, they again can germinate. Then next is your hibernation. Hibernation means winter sleep. Animals, when it is very cold, they try to escape this winters by sleeping and to avoid this extreme cold. And next is your estivation. Estivation is summer sleep, and it occurs in certain snails and fishes to avoid this problem, these problems related to heat. And what is diapause? This is very important. Diapause means during which developmental growth is suspended during winter or when days are short. Means the development growth is suspended. It is different from hibernation, and it occurs in certain zooplanktons. So what is diapause? A stage of suspended development. It occurs in certain animals. Examples are like zooplanktons, and the developmental growth is suspended during winters when the days are short, and so the diapause is mostly influenced by light. So these are the different factors or the possibilities by which organisms cope with the adverse situations. Thank you.